Hey, good morning or afternoon or evening. My name is Chase Cunningham or Dr. Cunningham or Dr. Zero Trust, whatever. Um, let's get into cyber stuff because this is where I think things are most valuable for most people. And it's one of the only things that I actually understand. So, yeah. Let's start off with this. People were beating me up on LinkedIn, asking me to make comments about this post from, and I normally don't put out people's names on there, but if you're going to post stuff on social, then fine. Obviously, you're okay with stuff being posted. So, I saw this article, Zero Trust, the greatest cyber mirage in IT. And immediately the knee jerk reaction is, like, what the fuck? Like, come on, man, you're gonna fight the sort of movement that's going on here. However, when you read through it, what this guy is saying, actually, I agree with a whole lot of it. So let's run through this because I think this is worth talking about. Um, so Michael R, executive advisor, cool, good for you. Everyone drops the line, don't worry, we're moving to zero trust. Okay, sure. Cue the vendor slides with sleek diagrams, happy customers, and the promise of a magical state of security nirvana, as with every security thing that's ever been sold, but sure. And his point here is very valid, except there's one problem. Zero trust is not a product. Brilliant. I totally agree with you. It's not even a finish line. Brilliant. Totally agree with you. It's an operating model. Thank you, sir, for saying that. The principle is rock solid. NIST and CISA describe it as never trust, always verify, identify and device posture first, least privilege access, continuous verification, segmentation. Sure, you might want to give some credit to like John Kindervog and those folks, but anyway, let's go with NIST and CISA. Done right, it shrinks your blast radius, makes lateral movement harder, and keeps attackers sweating. Yes, that's the thing I like about ZT. Google has proved it at scale with BeyondCorp. The U.S. government's mandating it across agencies. This isn't fluff. Again, brilliant. Totally agree with you. Well done, sir. But then came the marketing department, and suddenly VPNs got rebranded as ZTNA. Don't necessarily disagree with you there. However, ZTNA, the real stuff, is different than a VPN and architectural and some of the other pieces, but I don't totally disagree with you. Identity brokers became zero trust identity platforms. Yeah, there's been a lot of shenaniganing in that space, and even legacy firewalls slapped on a shiny ZT sticker, a la, some of those folks. Result, a vendor free for all where every SKU claims to deliver zero trust out of the box. Yeah, that's just how marketing works, but you're not wrong. The reality CISOs see, tool sprawl, yes. Integration debt, sure. Budget overruns, yes. False security, yes. Now, I would caveat that with you're not wrong at all, but those problems are not the vendor's problems. Those problems are the CISOs that are buying this stuff because they're rushing to get it because they've read it on, like you just say in your next line, you're a Gartner report or whatever else, because it's the cat's ass. It is totally valid to say that there is tool sprawl and expense and depth and whatever else. But here's the follow on to that, right? Gartner, wasn't joking when they predicted over half of zero trust initiatives will fail to deliver meaningful benefit by 2025. Okay, well, how many friggin' sassy things have failed anyway? It's not a scam, but feels like one. Zero trust itself is not a scam, totally. The philosophy is necessary in a world of SaaS sprawl, BYOD, and attackers who thrive on living off the land. Yep. But the way it's packaged and sold, that's where the scam vibe kicks in, as with every other marketing thing in the history of marketing. But sure, the industry turned a security principle into a subscription box. Sure. Next time a vendor tells you they do zero trust, ask, and this is where I love what this guy wrote because I agree with it 1,000%. And this is the same stuff I ask people. Where exactly do you fit in NIST 800-207 architecture? Why NIST 800-207? Because it's an accepted global architecture. It's very simple. It's very clean, and it covers the totality of what you would need to do to start a zero trust instantiation. Totally, that's a question I ask all the time. How do you integrate with my existing stack? Yes. Show me. Don't tell me. That's literally why we build Demo Force if you want to use it, so you can actually try that shit out, but that's a different story. What's the measurable reduction of risk in my environment? Not in your brochure. Now, that one's a little bit, how could you do that without having the stuff in place? It's chicken or egg, and I understand the point that the guy's making, but it is kind of chicken or eggy. And most importantly, how do you reduce the blast radius, which is microsegmentation, ASAP, not in year 3 of room. I totally agree with you. Yes. If they can't answer, you're not buying zero trust. To a high degree, I agree with that. You're buying buzzword theater. Sure. Last points here, and this is where I agree with this guy very, very much. Zero trust is an architecture, not a product. Yes. It's a maturity journey, not a checkbox. Yes. And it delivers when you buy outcomes, not acronyms. Billion %. Thank you. So yes, keep the principle, kill the hype. Your attackers don't care what you call it. They only care if it works. And then he says, follow Michael Reichstein for more cybersecurity strategy. So good for you, dude. Like overall, if I'm giving out, you know, points for stuff that people write, I would give this a 9.5 out of 10. And I'm not generous with my points, whatever that means. Anyway, so all the folks that were DMing me saying, "Oh, geez, you got to go after this guy and whatever else," I agree with what he wrote. Like it makes a lot of sense, and this is someone that has obviously done their homework and really understands what's going on there. So, dude, well done to you. Kudos, flip of the hat, wag of the finger, whatever. All right, let's go on to other cyber stuff. Google is getting ready to hack back as U.S. considers shifting from cyber defense to offense. He's getting kind of scary here. New scam farms bill opens up new retaliatory hacking action. I have not read this bill yet, but I will be, and I will be doing a review of it. So if you like that stuff, let me know. Um, Google is reportedly preparing to take a more proactive role in defending itself and potentially other American organizations, U.S. infrastructure, et cetera, from hackers. Cybersecurity reported that Google, the Threat Intelligence Group Vice President Sandra Joyce, recently revealed the company is planning to form a, quote, disruption unit in the coming months. What we're doing in the Google Threat Intelligence Group is intelligence-led proactive identification of opportunities where we can actually take down some type of campaign or operation. Okay, potentially good, potentially World War III. We have to get a reactive position to a proactive one. We have to go from, reactive to proactive. We're going to make a difference right now. I agree with you, but there's other issues here. Joyce's revelation arrived at an event hosted by Center for Cybersecurity Policy and Law, which published a report titled "To Hack Back or Not to Hack Back." That is the question. Read that report. Interesting. Unfortunately, the report doesn't offer many answers of its own. It merely asks if the U.S. government should allow the private sector to engage in offensive cyber operations, which is a question that's been asked for a long time. It's clear in what direction the U.S. government is leaning. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed in July earmarked $1 billion for offensive cyber operations, even as the Trump administration acted policies that undermine defensive efforts overseen by CISO. That wouldn't necessarily allow companies like Google to contribute to offensive cyber operations, but it does show that activity is a priority. Okay. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act was followed by the August 15th proposal, that's why today's September 16th. I haven't read that one yet, but I will. Of the Scam Farms Mark and Reprisal Authorization Act of 2025, which, if passed, would authorize the President of the United States to issue letters of marque and reprisal with respects to acts of aggression in the United States, a member, criminal enterprise, or a conspirator associated with an enterprise involved in cybercrime. So I'm going to look at that and read through that bill and do a review of it. That sounds exceptionally slippery slope-y to me, but yeah. Modern technology is no stranger to nautical metaphors. Illegally procuring digital media is broadly known as piracy. Sure. After all, we still refer to products as being flagship. Okay, lots of cool Navy stuff, but the Scam Farms Mark and Reprisal Authorization Act, say that 5 times fast, would rely on a practice that is quite literally from the age of sail. Oh, wow. So we're going way back, as Wikipedia puts it, in an effort to discourage international cyber criminals from targeting American organizations. The only thing missing is a provision allowing the use of muskets and cutlasses, which would be kind of cool in the server room. That doesn't necessarily mean that being more proactive in cyber defense, whether or not that includes participation in the private sector, would be ill-advised. The current approach clearly isn't working. I would agree there. Blah, 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 more stuff about cyber and blah, blah, blah. It seems the U.S. government is ready to change its approach to deterring those attacks, and it's now clear that companies like Google are prepared to support that shift too. Good idea, bad idea. As someone that's worked in offensive and defensive cyber operations all the way up to the special access program level and things like that, I'm going to say that this is a cool idea, but it's also potentially very, very risky. And let me explain this for the folks that aren't deeply entrenched in the cyber warfare space. Okay, so imagine North Korea is doing a proxy attack through machines in Brazil to go after a hospital in Kansas, right? They're doing extortion, their Bitcoin stuff because they're building their nuclear program, whatever. And this is all theoretical, so don't send this shit up to like Congress and tell them I'm violating some whatever. But let's imagine that that's taking place. Now imagine that it's bouncing off of Google infrastructure and whatever else. And Google's threat intelligence team goes, we're going to be in front of this and we're going to do some Google shit. And they do whatever they do to take down that infrastructure. Okay. Now it takes down the infrastructure potentially in Kansas, which might be harmful, but let's say they don't do that because they're awesome. But they have to block stuff coming from or potentially brick the infrastructure where it was launched in Brazil. Now, Brazil's pissed off because something went down. Maybe that infrastructure is tied to a banking system. It causes cascading failure because they have fucked up configurations and whatever else. And it works its way back and it shows up that this is bouncing through China. And again, there's another blah, blah that happens there and bad things happen. So very, very quickly, you potentially went from stopping an attack to causing an international incident. And depending on who you piss off, it might be enough for them to go, well, we're going to take this up a notch. And then you wind up with this escalating, mutually assured destruction in cyber sort of thing. Now, that sounds far-fetched, but I could tell you from sitting on the keyboard, it's not really that far-fetched. There aren't rules and regulations. There is no Geneva Convention in cyber. There is no NATO in cyber. There is no Article 4, whatever else. So cyber is very, very Wild Westy. It's very risky that this stuff takes place. And on top of that, legally in the United States, and I'm not a legal scholar, I'm just talking about stuff that I've been involved in and things I know. Legally, you have to have what we call title authority to actually do anything. Google does not have title authority. Now, someone's probably going to say, well, they're defending their own infrastructure. Sure. But the moment that you do that and you reach out and brick something or affect something or whatever in another area, another nation, especially one that's either potentially friendly or adversarial to the United States, you could cause international incidents. And does Google want to be left holding the bag for this? What if it does escalate? What if it gets, and I mean, it's happened in the past where one thing causes cascading failures and it moves its way up the food chain and things get really bad really quick. So I think this is a cool idea and concept, and I haven't reviewed the bill, but I will. But it's very, very scary to me as an American and a person who sat on pause doing work in the past that this could get way out of hand way quick. So we'll just leave it there. This is in the Financial Times, and this is kind of along the lines of what's been going on with the Trump administration saying that they've worked a deal with TikTok, but here's where things get weird. Beijing says TikTok's US app, will use a Chinese algorithm. Well, that sounds wrong. Security hawks have raised fears recommending code could be manipulated to push propaganda. Gee, you think? Um, so let's read a little bit here. So Beijing has said U.S. spinoff of TikTok to be sold to American investors in a deal orchestrated by President Donald Trump will use parent company ByteDance's Chinese algorithm. That right there should kill the deal right off the bat because that means that this is totally disingenuous and China's not giving up an inch of ground. Wang Jintao, deputy head of China's powerful cybersecurity regulator, told reporters on Monday night, which was last night, that the U.S. and Chinese officials had agreed to a framework that included, quote, licensing the algorithm and other intellectual property rights. He said ByteDance would, quote, entrust the operation of TikTok's U.S. user data and content security without elaborating. Okay, so they're literally saying, we'll give you this stuff, but we're going to backdoor it. I hope someone up at the top of the food chain actually understands how this shit works because they're just dangling this in front of us. TikTok's powerful recommendation algorithm has been at the heart of a geopolitical tug of war over the short video app since the Trump administration came into power when Beijing unveiled export controls and algorithms to thwart a forced sale of the app. The AI algorithm, which is not AI, it's machine learning, underpins the app's prized ability to serve up addictive videos tailored to individual users, but it also has raised fears among national security hawks that it could be manipulated to push Chinese propaganda or polarizing material to users. Yes, very much so. U.S. officials have insisted that any deal must ensure TikTok's recommendation algorithm is fully severed from ByteDance. Well, that's what they're saying they're not going to do, warning that continued cooperation with Beijing would allow influence to be pushed. It remains unclear to what extent TikTok's Chinese parent would retain control of the algorithm in the U.S. as part of a licensing deal. Yeah, they talk about Taco and Trump chickening out and whatever else. I don't care about that stuff, but yeah. China's two top trade negotiators, Vice Premier He Lifeng and Deputy Commerce Minister Li Chenggang, indicated that Beijing would approve the export of TikTok's algorithm. Yeah. As part of the deal, Oracle, which already stores the personal data of American users on its U.S. cloud servers, would have taken a small holding in the new business and is also responsible for securing and will be responsible for securing U.S. apps data. So Oracle is going to be holding the bag for this. Okay, so um, totally my commentary opinion here. This is a bad idea. This is not the way that this should work. We should just ban TikTok entirely and kick them the fuck out of the United States in all the way. They should go because they are run by China. China is an adversarial nation. They are focused on being the world superpower in 2035. And TikTok is an influence and propaganda engine. And the algorithm being used is going to do things that you don't want it to do. They will find ways to embed subroutines and all kinds of other stuff into that system that will wind up funneling data out of here. It's a law in China that if you have Chinese stuff, you must allow the government to access it. We, the United States, should not allow Chinese influence operations to take place knowingly in the United States. So, Trump administration, please just fucking kill this deal and punt them out of the United States. That's my 2 cents. Pretty simple. So, further down the rabbit hole, this article is in TechSpot. Senator urges FTC to probe Microsoft for gross cybersecurity negligence. Thank God somebody might have read the paper that I worked with that group to put up and get in front of people about what the definition of cyber negligence is. And if you did read it, I'd love to talk to you. This is a quote from the senator. Microsoft has become like an arsonist selling firefighting services to their victims. That's a pretty good burn. Microsoft has long said that security is a top priority of the company, but a U.S. senator is far from convinced. Democrat Ron Wyden requested that the FTC investigate the Redmond firm for its alleged negligent role in several cyber attacks over the last few years. Okay. In a letter sent to FTC Chair Andrew Ferguson, Wyden said that Microsoft should be held responsible for its, quote, gross cybersecurity negligence. Wyden highlighted the ransomware attack on healthcare provider Ascension as an example of Microsoft's failings. Ascension, which operates 118 hospitals and hundreds of other facilities nationwide, revealed in December 2024 that 5.6 million had their personal medical data exposed, blah, blah, blah. The attack was enabled through a classic technique a contractor accidentally downloaded a malicious file disguised as legitimate called phishing. Third, while Ascension said that the incident was an honest mistake, Wyden argues that Microsoft was to blame. This is one of the points, I'll make a point here in a second, but this is one of the points of this is what it is to show that these people at the top that are writing this legislation don't understand. The senator writes that an Ascension contractor using one of the company's laptops conducted a search via Bing. Why was he searching on Bing? No one uses Bing. The default engine used by Edge. Everybody gets rid of Edge. That's the first thing I've done on every machine I've ever used is dump Edge. The contractor clicked on a malicious link from one of the search results, which caused him to inadvertently download and open malware. This allowed hackers to infiltrate Ascension's network and install the ransomware. Now, here's where we prove that this person does not understand how things work. Wyden said the hack could have been avoided if Microsoft had patched a vulnerability called Kerber roasting, which is an attack on Active Directory that uses Kerberos service tickets. Attackers request tickets from encrypted accounts with the hash, extract them, and then crack the hashes, blah, blah, blah. The letter blames Microsoft continued support for RC4 encryption. It notes that the threat can be mitigated by setting long passwords that are at least 14 characters long. So, follow on to that. In his letter, however, Wyden criticized Microsoft for failing to deliver the promised update nearly a year later. He said all the companies did little to publish. So basically, he's saying that Microsoft didn't stop Kerber roasting. Okay. So here's to me evidence that these people, even the folks at the aides that are up there, don't understand what the hell is going on because this is not Microsoft's fault per se. Okay. Microsoft is providing software to the world and it's everywhere. And Kerberos is there. Active Directory does its thing. Old encryption protocols are still very prevalent, et cetera, et cetera. This was not Microsoft's fault. This was the fault of the third party and the contractor and the hospital and all those folks that should have had the right controls in place, that should have pushed stuff out, that were compliant, quote, but didn't actually do what they said and were in violation of those terms. So I'm not a fan of the big business side of Microsoft because I think that it's doing its thing, but I would say that this is not negligent on their part. This is negligence on the hospital. This is negligence on the third party contractor. So Senator Wyden, if you happen to listen to this, know this, that this very misconfiguration that's out there that you're talking about is all over everywhere, all day, every day. And you can't hold Microsoft necessarily responsible for negligence when all they did was provide a service and a capability And they've put updates out there and they publish fixes and whatever else that could have solved this problem. At the end of the day, if I buy a truck and I decide to only put, I don't know, one lug nut on the back right wheel, that's my choice. Dodge sold me the truck and the tire flies off and it fucking kills me and 10 other people on the highway. Dodge is not responsible for me being a moron. Dodge told me like to put all the bolts on my tire. Dodge told me it was unsafe to operate the vehicle with all that blah, blah, blah. It's not Dodge's fault. Now, I would agree that Microsoft has a monopoly, CrowdStrike has a monopoly, blah, those types of things, whatever else. But I can't, as a cyber person, sit here and look at this and go, yes, this is the right way to apply this negligence standard and whatever else. The negligence standard, in my opinion, should go against the hospital and the contractors and whatever else. They should be the ones held liable. And it really sticks in my craw that I'm giving Microsoft an out here, but it's just the honest, accurate, right thing to do. Now, should Microsoft push this patch and whatever else and beat the door down to get it patched? Yeah, but is that going to happen? Probably not. So, I work on the Hill all the time, and it's not that those people are not trying to do their job. They're a lot of good people, but they don't understand cyber. And this is going to be problematic because this type of thing will work its way into legislation, and it's not enforceable, and it's not accurate. It's not technically correct. So I'm going to say this one is poo. Yes. All right. Following on to that, study shows mandatory cybersecurity courses do not stop phishing attacks. Hooray, hurrah. Thank God. I'm so glad this finally came out. Yes. A new study of nearly 20,000 employees at UC San Diego Health raises questions about one of corporate America's most common defenses against cybercrime, mandatory phishing awareness training, which we all know and love. Despite a broad push among companies and government agencies to educate workers on spotting online scams, the research suggests these programs, quote, may have little to no effect in preventing employees from falling for phishing attacks, like I've been saying for 10 years. The 8-month study, and I have the link to the study, I'll share with anybody that wants it, conducted in 2023, involved 10 simulated phishing campaigns targeting staff across the California health system. Researchers sought to determine whether the standard annual training widely used across industries enhanced employees' ability to identify and avoid malicious emails instead of showing a gradual decline in attentiveness over time, as the researchers thought. The results revealed no significant difference in failure rates, regardless of when workers last underwent training. Quote, this suggests the mandatory cyber awareness training did not provide beneficial security knowledge to users. Bam! Grant Ho, an assistant professor at the University of Chicago. Researchers found that employees who completed any form of training performed only marginally better than those who received none. So the training's worthless, especially with a cost associated with it, with average failure rates reduced by just 1.7%. The consistency of failure rates, even immediately after training sessions, suggested that the programs had little impact on changing employee behavior. So there's other stuff that goes into this. The material might be too generic, poorly designed, or presented in a format typically online that employees are unlikely to absorb. Many just tuned it out. Data shows that during simulated training sessions, employees spent less than a minute engaging with the material in more than 3/4 of the cases. In 37 to 51% of sessions, employees close the training page immediately. A lot of times when employees click on a training module, one possible reason they leave immediately is because they're checking email on the web for another purpose. So they literally are going against the very terms of what's in front of them. So point being, and I'll say this again for the record, you should train your people, but training is not a control, and do not rely on them not to click phishing links. You're putting them on the internet to use the fucking internet. They're going to click links. Like, that's the nature of the interaction here. Don't rely on them not to click phishing links, no matter how much you train them. However, what I'd love to see is a study like this bounced against an organization using enterprise browsers and those configurations to see which one turns out better. Matter of fact, I'll put this out there for anybody that listens to this. Let's make a bet. You put your phishing training and I'll go find somebody that has an enterprise browser solution. We'll put them against each other and see who does better. Like, let's just see, because I guarantee you the enterprise browser technical control configuration, policy enforcement, etc., will beat 1.7% all day, every day, twice on Sunday. So point being here, folks, stop relying on phishing training. It's not a security control. Don't pay for it. Get yourself an enterprise browser. That's how you help. Like, it's way, way better. And I'm not paid by any enterprise browser company. I just think the shit works. Actually, I know that it does. Article in the Record. Texas sues Power School for breach exposing the data of students and teachers, which is good. The state of Texas is suing education provider Power School following a 2024 data breach that exposed sensitive information belonging to 62.4 million students and 9.5 million teachers. Attorney General Ken Paxton alleges the Power School violated state laws pertaining to deceptive trade practices, ouch, and identity theft protection by, quote, deceiving customers about the strength of its security protocols, and for its failure to protect users' data. Ooh, boy, I would not want to be at that company right now. Power School, based in California, provides cloud service for K-12 schools and says it's used by 18,000 school districts. About 6,500 of those, so a lot of them, were impacted by the December 2024 hack. The hacker accessed more than 880,000 Texas teachers and students' data. Power School filed a data breach report with Paxton's office in May. Paxton noted that Power School markets itself as meeting, quote, and this is where you stick the sword right in your own throat, quote, the highest security standards, meaning they got certified ISO, SOC 2, blah, 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 whatever, and offering, quote, state-of-the-art protections. Yeah. Companies acknowledged it did not have multi-factor authentication protocols in place for the breach. So let me get this straight. So Power School, you put the stuff on your website that you are, quote, highest security standards, okay, and state-of-the-art protections, but you don't have MFA on your stuff, and you're taking care of COPA data, which is children's information. There's PII, which is in there. My guess is there's probably spillage of PCI and potentially HIPAA data too, and they knowingly violated what those things were, and then they put it out there that they can just, run forward and go blah, blah. So here is proof, if you ask me, that compliance initiatives don't actually make things more secure, and it's a really good way to market yourself into a very bad place. Power School deserves what's coming to them, and I hope they get it, because this is wrong. It's children's information, and to steal somebody like me, like to steal somebody like myself, I don't know, whatever, to steal my shit is not nearly as valuable as someone who's under 18, because I have credit monitoring, I have all other stuff, whatever else. Like the likelihood of me catching someone messing around with my social security number is way higher than some kid who's at school whose stuff has been stolen, because they won't even know about it until they're 18. So there's a very big, I think that maybe Texas should hold the company accountable for every student until they turn 18. And if they have a violation, or if they have a PII theft or something like that, they should fine the company even further. Because if you're going to market it and say that you did it, you had better fucking do it. And just to help people out, because I like to help people where I can. This is the actual link to the study of the thing I was talking about earlier. A lot of times what happens, folks, is you'll go off and you'll say, look, I want to, do some research on this, and you'll hit a paywall real quickly. Here's what you do. Take the link that's there, go off and throw it into your favorite Chat GPT, Perplexity, whatever else, and say, are there any studies that reference this study? And it'll find stuff because they're cited against each other, right? Citations go against citations. You will find a link to that study somewhere in those citations that is not protected by a paywall. When I found this, it took me maybe a minute and a half to go take that information, throw it into Perplexity, use the citations, and then I found the actual study from UC San Diego, I think it was, website, or whoever it was that published this. I think it's Grant Ho, I believe. Yeah, UC San Diego. So there you go. There's your tip to find free, cool stuff on the internet, is use the citations against themselves to find the links to the actual studies past the paywall. Because most of the time you're going to hit a paywall pretty quick. Anyone that tells you that AI is not going to take your job is lying to your face. So this is in cyber news. Online marketplace Fiverr, which I use Fiverr all the time. It's great. I work with some folks out of Pakistan and Armenia and other places. They're amazing. To slash the workforce by 30%. Oof. Israel-based Fiverr International is laying off 30% of its workforce, a company spokesperson said on Monday, as the online service marketplace doubles down on AI to automate systems. The cuts, which will affect 250 employees, are part of a restructuring plan announced by Fiverr CEO Micha Kaufman, geared towards investing heavily in AI and corporate technology in the company's platform. The company had 762 employees as of December last year. And this is a quote from the CEO, "We are launching a transformation for Fiverr to turn Fiverr into an AI-first company that's leaner, faster," which means less people, is what he's really saying, With a modern AI-focused tech infrastructure, a smaller team, each with substantially greater productivity, which means they're just going to take the people that are left that survive the cut and make them do more work, and far fewer management layers. Meh. The layoffs mirror similar moves by larger tech firms such as Salesforce and others, Microsoft, whatever. Yeah, so like just FYI, I think somebody put an article out recently that there's two types of people in the future. There's the folks that think that AI won't take their job, which it will. There's the folks that are going to use AI to be better than others so that they will be more productive and have more opportunities in the future. I'm hopefully in the latter group. I hope that you are too. Like, this is the place where you should be using this stuff. My 2 cents, if you're listening to this and you give a shit about anything that I say, is it is okay to use these systems to benefit yourself and to be more competitive in the job space. Like, if you're relying on still being awesome and people liking you, that shit's over with. You need to be super productive and you need to be using these tools as best as possible. I let my kids use AI for their own school studies and whatever else. In the Cunningham household, when it comes to academics, we cheat. And what I mean by that is we will use every opportunity we can to get better grades, to get my kids, moving up the ladder, because that's where it's at. Like, if you're not doing this, you're going to be left standing on the hill going, I'm super cool. Why didn't this work for me? Because everybody else used the system against itself to beat the system. Like, do the same thing. Will the EU start scanning your private messages? But isn't the EU and the UK like the bastion of privacy? Social media users are spreading panic online as the European Commission meets to discuss a new proposed framework for combating child sexual abuse material, which is good, but there's privacy issues here, right? Many outraged social media users took to platforms like X to condemn the EU Commission 2022 draft outline new regulations to combat child sexual abuse material, which again, totally should be done, but there's privacy issues here. Quote, chat control will get approved and there's nothing we can do about it, said an X user. So what is chat control? Chat control is the EU's outline for combating child sexual abuse material. It mentions the potential to scan through text message chats for such content. The proposal mentions, and I have the link to the proposal here as well, quote, the detection process is generally speaking the most intrusive one for users since it requires automatically scanning through text and interpersonal communications. Yeah. This could mean that this could or does mean that European governments could or will obtain access information from digital service providers operating in Europe, like social media sites, WhatsApp, etc. The chat control proposal would legalize the scanning of all private digital communications, including encrypted messages and photos, fight chat control, the website raising awareness legislation said. Which countries are going to support this? Well, Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Finland, Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Poland. And here's 15 more that are lining up to do that as well. Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Denmark, France, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Portugal, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So there's no real clarity about what chat control is or whatever's going on. But the point here, and you can read through the report itself, is the EU is saying that to protect children, which again, great thing, they're going to have the ability to scan and look at all communications. Now, the EU is supposed to be this, like they have a fucking privacy program and all this, whatever else, but they're literally saying that in order to protect children, we're going to scan everything and go look at whatever's there, and then we'll be able to. And if you haven't noticed what's going on in the UK, which Brexit and whatever else, but UK, EU, not that different. Go look at what's happening to people that post stuff on social media that is not nice. They're being arrested and getting jail sentences for just posting stuff. Like, freedom of speech, I would argue, doesn't exist over there because they don't have an actual constitution like we do in the United States that says that you can say what you kind of want in relation to the government. Look it up. Like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole, but look it up. People have been arrested and put in jail for tweets. So what happens when you're sending text messages joking with somebody, and say you make some off-color joke, which is wrong, but say you make some off-color joke and they're scanning that, are cops going to come kick in your door because you said something jokingly between two friends? Potentially very slippery slope here. So yes. If you ever wanted more evidence that Facebook is the hellscape that it is, childlike sex dolls appear on Facebook. That's just gross. Meta's Facebook is hosting over 1,000 adverts for childlike sex dolls on its platform, bringing the big tech company's attitude to child safety into question. I would say that question's been asked for a long time. A package arrived at a major London airport in 2021. For whatever reason, Border Force officers were forced to investigate its contents. What they found was shocking. Upon opening the package, the officers found a motionless, naked child lying in the box, not breathing. The officers soon realized this, quote, child wasn't a real person, but extremely lifelike doll. Gross. Naturally, the border officers looked to see who the package was addressed to and found it was on its way to a man called Wesley Clark from Rumford, East London. Following the incident, police descended upon Clark's residence and uncovered 2 more childlike dolls. One appeared 13, while the other was around 15. Icky. While the scene was already unsettling, authorities found that one of the dolls was naked and the other was dressed in a black skirt. As law enforcement searched Clark's home, they found 4 replacement eyes and an array of clothing labeled for small children. During interrogation, Clark admitted that these were sex dolls. Yeet that motherfucker into the sun. However, he didn't think they would look like children and only bought them because the smaller size was cheaper. Sure. Later, Clark confessed having a sexual preoccupation with school uniforms and school children. Again, yeet him into the sun. It was later discovered that multiple devices belonging to Clark contained 40 extreme child pornography category A and 17,000 prohibited cartoons depicting children. Yeah. Clark claimed that he bought the childlike sex dolls for $1,000 from the site Love Dolls. Ick. However, it's becoming much easier to locate these childlike sex dolls advertised as, quote, companions, as they've been popping up all over Facebook. And here's a picture of 1,300 ads for childlike sex dolls found on Facebook. And I know YouTube is going to kill this post or whatever else because I'm using those words. I'm just reading from what's fucking reported. So there you go. Groups of websites selling small dolls that look freakishly like children have been published across Meta's platform, and this is from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. The adverts display the childlike dolls in overtly sexualized poses, icky, with some even holding balloons or teddy bears, like that picture on the right there. While this type of content definitely violates Meta's rules and regulations, some 20 adverts have evaded detection. Shocking. It's not a crime to own a childlike sex doll, which is weird, but okay. However, possible offenses including having the doll to distribute, sending an obscene object by post, or posting the obscene article. And this is the Crown Prosecution Service state, so this is UK. Many unaware people may believe that possessing a child sex doll will curb a pedophile's desire to abuse real children. That's not the case. What the fuck? In the context of pedophilic tendencies, the activity can potentially escalate from fantasizing about performing sex acts on. I'm not even going to read the rest of this, but just read it on your own. Yeah, so I'm going to go to the Meta thing. Meta explicitly bans the sale of sexual products on its site and prohibits posts that support or show the sexual exploitation of children. Sure. However, the fact that some of these adverts have gone undetected shows how lax Meta can be when it comes to protecting children online. Totally agree. Cyber News has previously reported Meta's Instagram failed to protect minors from viewing graphic content by its apps. Yep. Meta reportedly backed the EU's digital adulthood plan, which aims to protect children from harmful content and online predators by requiring them to have their parents' consent before logging into platforms like Facebook. However, the proliferation of content and advertisements that seem to explicitly and implicitly encourage the abuse of children continues to, quote, seep through Facebook's supposed stronghold. So, Facebook, be creepy. Don't let your kids do that stuff. And anyone out there that's doing weird child sex doll stuff, you eat them into the sun. Yeah. And lastly, AI failed the Holocaust test. Yikes. And that should worry us all. AI has stumbled on one of the hardest tests of all, retelling Holocaust survivor testimony. A new study by Cornell historian Jan Burzloff shows that ChatGPT smoothed out suffering, omitted vital details, and risked distorting memory itself. Yeah. Cornell historian John, I guess, Burzloff recently asked whether AI could cope with the horrors of the Holocaust. He fed ChatGPT Holocaust survivor testimonies from archives in La Paz, Bolivia, Krakow, Poland, and Connecticut, USA, and asked it to retell them. On paper, that's a simple exercise, right? In practice, the gaps basically said everything. One story brought into focus 7-year-old Luisa D. Starving recalled her mother cutting her finger and dripping blood into her mouth, the faintest traces of moisture to keep her alive. ChatGPT omitted the moment. So for Burzloff, the absence was telling. Quote, the omission alone demonstrates why human historians remain indispensable in the age of artificial intelligence. What the AI produced was smooth, coherent, readable, and wrong. Survivor accounts aren't meant to be tidy. They falter, they contradict, and they fall into silence. The pauses matter as much as the words. Quote, essentially, it ignored the extent of these individuals' suffering on an emotional level. That is a problem. AI tries to clarify, and in clarifying distorts. Details should jolt or soften contradictions that should remain are ironed out. So there's more to this, but the point is AI is not a historian. And none of this, again, where I beat this horse to death, is AI is not AI, it's machine learning. Now, I would bet that you could go into a bot or ChatGPT or something and tweak what it's reporting and how it's doing its analysis, and it would probably do a better job at not ironing out all the nasty details. But it still is never going to be as empathetic and sympathetic and realistic as a human historian. So, yeah, I get why they're coming at this on this one. I don't know that I would call it a categorical failure, but I do think that it's very interesting that machine learning um, tried to soften the realities of something as horrific as the Holocaust. Anyway, I've covered a lot of really weird and crazy material. What a week. But yeah, there's more stuff there. As always, stay smart, stay safe, stay secure. If I can help with something, please let me know. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.